irony here is that the people who are so determined to have New Orleans rebuilt are the same crowd of believers in Al Gore's global warming doomsday scenario. To me, this is the very definition of hypocrisy. You got to ask yourself, global climate change, is it responsible for more hurricanes and a sea rise of more than 20 feet as Al Gore claims is coming? If so, why the heck would you want to rebuild that city? Why wouldn't you say run for your life? Let's check in with Chris Horner. He is the author of The Politically Incorrect Guide to Global Warming and Environmentalism and a frequent guest to this program. Chris, first of all, there is something new happening in America that is allowing people to sue the federal government, and there's a lawsuit that is going after Exxon because of hurricanes, and they say Exxon did nothing to stop it. Is that right?
The argument begins in the federal courthouse in Gulfport, Mississippi on August 30th, claiming that 26 oil companies somehow either created or intensified Hurricane Katrina and therefore is responsible for the loss of people who, you have to remember, for whatever reasons, live in levels below sea level, elevations lying below sea level in Hurricane Alley. Now, people like the Europeans tell us that prior to man-made global warming, people living in low-lying coastal areas did not bear the brunt of severe weather, but those storms used to proceed and they would stare happily overhead as it went in to hit the people, the rich people living inland. Now, that's fantasy land. New Orleans is, as we see now, not only just a tremendously expensive and risky and will prove to be fatal bet against Al Gore's alarmism, Remember, if you are like most scientists on record, the vast majority of them, who recognize the Chicken Littleism about global warming as for what it is, then you can't. Then you maybe think New Orleans is defensible. Except you remember, this isn't the Netherlands. This isn't. Netherlands isn't in Hurricane Alley, and the Netherlands is different than we've learned Louisiana is, where they don't tolerate political corruption. They insist upon it. So this is a fatal, tremendous bet against Al Gore. On that level, I appreciate it, but otherwise it is foolhardy policy.
You know, I have to tell you, Chris, that, you have to go after somebody because nobody will give you insurance in New Orleans. I mean, that was your first clue. I'm building my house or I'm buying my house in the wrong place when I can't get insurance for it. No. But here's something, an amendment that Henry Waxman from California has offered. H.R. 2635, because global warming has the potential to affect all persons in the United States, if the person alleges that the federal agency has failed to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions in accordance with the requirements under this act, the U.S. Treasury will compensate the plaintiff for any impact from global warming suffered by the plaintiff. This is incredible.
Right. You wonder if maybe they're just rebuilding New Orleans there, as is, to set things up for their trial lawyer buddies, as they are in every other count, including the provision in the bizarrely titled House Energy Bill, which is really full of global warming programs like this, and trial lawyer programs. Remember, our insurance is actually provided or underwritten by the federal government in areas where the market won't insure them. That's a moral hazard. Rebuilding New Orleans where it is, particularly if you are, as you accurately pointed out, one of the global warming alarmists or believers, makes no sense, moral hazard, but you don't put these provisions in the energy bill for trial lawyers.
Do you have any idea why we provide insurance? Why would the federal government provide insurance where you can't get it? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Move. Don't build your house there.
Well, as I like to say to my son when I take him to the beach, high tide isn't a flood unless you build a sandcastle there during low tide. And that's what we're finding out now. New Orleans isn't a flood unless you, or cities don't have to be moral hazards unless you insist upon building them places where people spending their own resources would not build them. And that answers the question, why does the government do it? Because the taxpayer, because the market won't.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Coming up, illegal immigrants desperate